and welcome to the Many Nations Partnership discussion. On the call today, we're joined by, we've got the three student presidents, and then we're also joined by Filippo Antoniazzi, who's Director of Student Life, and also Liz Hancock, who is one of the university's Vice Principals for Academic Development and Student Experience. So I think you'll know who the presidents are. I'm Ross, and I'm Student President for Communication and Democracy. Jordan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jordan, and I'm the Student President for Sport and Physical Activity.
And I'm Emmanuel, and I'm the Student President for Education and Welfare.
Okay, and I've done this back to front, so I've already introduced Liz and Phil as well. So this session today, we're going to touch on partnership, the partnership agreement and this year's objectives, and the importance of recognising them as we go through both Black History Month and then the Many Nations events as well, and looking at diversity and the importance of celebrating the international cultures that we have here within the RGU community. We'll then have a look at the work that's been done so far in the return to learning, so that's both on campus and then looking at the online alternative arrangements, and then we'll go on to looking at what's coming up for the rest of the semester and also semester 2. So Emmanuel, I wonder if you, being the education president, if you maybe want to touch on some of the rep structures and both the formal and informal partnerships that we have here at RGU.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ross. I think the best place to start would be to first of all talk about the Student Partnership Agreement. The Student Partnership Agreement in the past has been sort of like an agreement document where students and staff come together to make an agreement on a particular enhancement theme or an enhancement topic. Very much in the past, it's been around academics and education stuff, but this year, the Student Partnership Agreement touches more on the welfare and well-being of students. And the Partnership Agreement for 2020 is understanding the expectations around equality, tolerance, and respect. We signed that agreement at the beginning of the year, as opposed to how it's been done in the past, which is at the start of the academic year to the end of the academic year. Now and much more going forward, it's going to be around the start of the calendar year to the end of the calendar year. So far, we still have the Student Partnership Agreement for 2020 in place. And to carry that agreement forward, we make good use of the structures that we have in place. So that's the student reps, the school officers, the equality champions, all working together with staff. Agreement 2020. It's not just the structures that we have in place, but we also have different other student leads, including the student sabbatical exec and the student unions exec. So by that saying, that would mean the student presidents and the vice presidents working together with the school officers, the equality champions, and the student reps to work together with staff at different levels, in informal or informal structures. So that would mean both course leaders, lecturers, equality champions for staff, and just normal informal interactions between staff and students. Keep me right if I'm wrong, but I think I've maybe touched on every part of the Student Partnership Agreement.
I think you definitely have there, and I think, yeah, obviously, as you said, this year we've changed it around a little bit so that they're made at the start of the calendar year, which allows that kind of carry over between the different years too. I don't know if Phil or Liz, do you maybe want to touch on the partnership agreement from the university side? Obviously, it kind of leads our work together on the various activities that we do.
Yeah, if I could come in here, the partnership agreement is the formal way that we work in partnership. Like Emmanuel has said, we pick an enhancement area, but hopefully on this call we'll talk about partnership in general as well, will we?
Yeah.
Okay, but in terms of the agreement itself, I think we're sort of ahead of the curve by choosing to discuss equality, tolerance and respect, and they're the words that we put into the title, but the other words are gaining an understanding of what our community thinks of those three words. And I think we were ahead of the game in that the energy around Black Lives Matter in the summer highlighted and heightened to all institutions across the globe that you need to start considering that. And we've had a lot of movement around that, and talking about institutional racism again for the first time for a long time in the UK, raising that again, and that doesn't exclude HE institutions, so higher education institutions, so that it came at the right time, if you like, and it allowed the university, and in a much wider sense than just the staff that were involved in the formal partnership agreement and the students that are involved in the formal partnership agreement, to really come behind it. And so I don't want to say the Black Lives movement is a lucky thing for us to have hit on, but it is. We've hit a time when everyone is starting to think about their individual behavior and their individual efforts to tackle one aspect of it, which is racism, but it goes wider than that, around our whole attitude to equality, tolerance, and respecting each other within our community. So we've had an awful lot of people, more people than would normally be involved in what can be a bit of a dry partnership agreement, but this one, it seems to hit the nail on the head, if you like, of what people were really interested in. I'm really proud that the student presidents, along with people from the university, came together and said, look, this is a challenging topic. What do we understand about all of these things? And it's grown momentum. Newton's third law, is it? Right, I'm talking rubbish now if I'm going on about physics.
And I think
that's
the key thing from a university perspective, I think, is, as Phil said, it's driven us to bring the community together to try and understand the diversity of the population that we've got. But I mean, the key thing here is not just to talk about it, but to help drive change. And I think that's been critical.
I think that's it, and where we've been the work that was both done last year by the university and last year's the three SABs that were in place, it's more than just that discussion and more than just the highlighting. It's actually the using it to drive that change forward and making the positive outcomes. And Jordan, I wonder if you could maybe touch on, obviously we've talked about the partnership agreement and looking at the formal side, and from our side in the Students' Union we have the various forums that we use. We have the sports and societies forums and student voice, chat, comment, change, all these things. Do you maybe want to touch on those and how they work?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, Ross, we have our forums, and they're there to kind of empower our students and educate them and help them understand their roles and come together and use their voice as students to kind of raise issues. And I guess as part of those, there's always a member of university staff that's keen to get involved, keen to engage with those forums, and that are invited as well to take part in them. So that's a really useful thing for us, because it's not only our perspective in terms of societies, sports clubs, activities and things like that, but the university also have a chance to get involved and answer any questions that the student might have directly from that point as well. I guess we're in a chat, comment, change today. So university staff here willing to answer questions, work with us to kind of raise issues and voice them as well. So massive part of what we do at the union as well. In terms of informal, they're always on hand, staff to kind of help us and guide us in what we need, and then also on hand to ask us for any support that we can give them as well.
I think that's a really important point, as well as the kind of the stuff that we do publicly alongside the university. So things like this. A lot of our chat, comment, exchange sessions, unlike this one, will also have opportunity for student direct feedback. So obviously we've collected opinions beforehand this time, and we're having it more discussion based, but there are opportunities. We've got student voice coming up next week, where it's a great opportunity to ask questions directly to the university and to us, to ask us what we're up to, making sure that we're doing what students think is best. I think that's where it works really well together. And I wonder, Emmanuel, if you can maybe touch on, from the union side, you've definitely taken a lead over the last month or so in leading the Black History Month, and also setting up the Black Liberation Network and supporting myself and Bart in the 1RG Many Nations. So do you maybe want to touch on a little bit about the month, about some of the activities coming up, but then also some of the great work that's been done between the union and the university in planning that?
Thank you very much, Ross. I think I'll just add to what Phil was saying earlier when he was explaining, partnership as it is. And lucky we've been, if I'm allowed to say it that way, for the student partnership agreement to align with, the different happenings around the globe at this time. The Black Liberation Network did come out of the sense of partnership, when in reaction to the Black Lives Matter protests that was happening, campaign rather, that was happening around the world at the time over the summer. The university and the student union came together to sort of map out different ways we can involve members of our community to sort of not only understand, but raise awareness and bring about meaningful change. On the staff side, for example, on the university side, the university did sign up to an advanced HE declaration, which sort of admits that racism exists in our society, call it what it is, and kick it out. And that's a very, very massive win, not just for RGU as a university or the advanced HE sector, but basically the whole world, the UK in general, because it's a big thing to make that move and admit and want to bring about meaningful change. So it is also on the back of that we started driving discussions within the student body, and we thought the best way to come about that or to foster that discussion is to create a student network that will sort of have like a safe space for people to sort of talk about these issues, come together as one with a common goal to sort of bring about that change we want to see. And Black History Month came about. So Black History Month is sort of like the whole month of October celebrating the contribution of BIPOC individuals into the UK economy, into the UK society, into the UK community. And so far, so good. It's been going really well. We've had loads of different interesting and amazing activities set up. We had a panel at the start of the whole Black History Month that sort of launched the campaign for the month, and it went really well because from there we sort of got an opportunity to hear some of the experiences of these individuals, and we also had we have this safe space discussions where students and members of the LGU community in general could come in and sort of learn from the experiences of others or have an opportunity to share their own experiences, especially anonymously, which encourages people to even share them even more. So so far we've had loads of amazing events and activities lined up, and we've got some even more this week. We've got a Netflix party, sort of to see a movie that would sort of allow people to discuss some of these issues that pertain to the campaign. But also there's also a discussion between myself and a couple of RGU alumni who have offered to come along and sort of maybe not only share their experience, but maybe also give advice on what people can do when they find themselves in situations where uncomfortable situations where maybe they're experiencing different instances of racism or microaggressions or that kind of thing. And then I think what one of the big wins that is really, really worth highlighting is what we're trying to close the month off with, which is the launch of Report and Support as a platform. So it's not really a launch, but it's expanding the Report and Support platform to sort of capture hate crime and help victims of hate crime to then become survivors. So give individuals an opportunity to report these incidents, but also support them through the process as well to rise above it. So it's been a really I would say, maybe not from me, or maybe someone else should say, but from the way I say, it's been a big success so far for Black History Month campaign. And
Can I come in there? It's like it's been really noticeable the amount of, and when Emmanuel was planning for this, he said he didn't want it just to be a student thing. He wanted it to be a partnership thing, and the university to come behind it, and not just the normal people that come behind it. I was heartened to see this morning around the number of community stories that were in the staff bulletin today that are centered around Black History Month. And there was one brilliant one from Lee from the Black Student Liberation Network about allyship. And it just taught me so much. And listening to the discussions last week that you were having, Emmanuel, there's so much that we can learn from just listening to each other and understanding different people's experiences. And I think that's the big challenge. So you mentioned the pledge that the university has signed, and that is about the target of that, or the goal, as I understand it as an individual working in this university, is how can we, I'm not racist, and I truly believe that with my heart, but am I anti-racist? Am I doing enough to tackle racism and bring about change, as Liz has been talking about? So I think as an institution, the launch of Report and Support to expand it, to widen it, so it's not just about gender-based violence, but can we have a platform where you can report instances, but most importantly, support people that have suffered some form of microaggression, hate crime around race and other areas of equality, diversity, and inclusion. I think that's a step for us going towards an anti-racist approach. If we can all, as white people, learn to be allies and really drive forward change and think about white privilege, think about the experiences that we haven't had and how we can help bring about change. So and it's the events that have been carried out in Black History Month on this campus, or the campus being a wider online type thing at the moment. But I've learned a lot just from reading and watching things that you've been doing, Emmanuel. So I'm really pleased with that. But I'm pleased with the university because its social media channels have actually been working hard to promote the activities of Black History Month, which probably wasn't the case a year ago, certainly not 3 years ago.
Very, very correct. I would agree with that. Thank you very much, Phil.
I think that's a really great thing to see, and I know you're being modest there, Emmanuel, with how great a month it's been. But I think hopefully the really good thing to see with both the whole month's activities and then this week with the 1 hour Many Nations is it's kicking off the year's activities. It's not at all that's the end of it. We've got an amazing liberation network now. We'll have the international student group. We've got some great partnership activities that have already happened and that have really kind of led the way of what's to come. So hopefully that can be it. It can be the legacy activities, and it can be the work throughout the year, which happens both, as we've talked about, formally within the partnership agreement and the work that we do, and then also in the informal partnership work that we do, which I know that you wanted to touch on, Phil, as well.
Yeah, I just think the way forward for this university, and Liz will comment on the annual appraisal process that we have to go through all our academic schools and all our support services, is to reflect on, we ask of all our departments, all our schools, to reflect on equity and diversity and inclusion matters, to think how much they can enhance it. And I think part of what has come up, and Liz will probably be able to comment much better on that, is how can we use the equity and diversity data more to bring about change. But the partnership that works best is when students and staff have opportunities to come together and discuss matters, whether that's that lecture wasn't very good, perhaps if you did it in this way next year we would get more out of it, or I don't understand what you're asking me of in my assessment at the smallest level, to what Jordan was talking about in terms of the sports forum has traditionally been a meeting of all the club leaders, the president, and also staff that are involved in sport, and they come together and solve problems together as equals. But then, and again, one of the discussions we had earlier in the I can't remember whether it was tolerance or respect or equality, Emmanuel, but reflecting that we are different people and we have got different roles within the institution. So you might have a staff member, a student member, and maybe it's not equal, but it's fine as long as it's respecting the boundaries around that. But where you can come and just be in a safe space to talk together and understand our different roles within the organisation, informally over cups of tea, coffee, in forums like that, in forums like this, so that you can talk as partners, and partners can only work when there's mutual respect on each side. We're seeing that in national things. The EU, UK is there mutual respect between the two of them, and are the negotiations breaking down because they're not talking informally, it's only formally, you know? So our drive through the appraisal system is to make sure there's genuine partnership in the heart of all our areas of the university. That might be in service departments, but that needs to be crucially in every single course and school within the university. And there's pockets of fantastic practice across the university and pockets where it needs to improve. I don't know whether you want to add, Liz.
Yeah, I could just add to that. I mean, we're going through the process at the moment of interrogating all the data that we've had from last year. So things like not just student satisfaction, but also student achievement rates, good honours, all sorts of progression types of stats. Each course will have its lump of statistics, which has to be critically appraised and evaluated by course teams, and then that's amalgamated by schools. Now, the richness of the data this year is broken down into things like gender, race, disability and inclusion. So we're actually getting into the nitty-gritty of those statistics to say, are there specific groups that are not performing as well? Yeah. And if they're not performing as well, why aren't they performing as well? Is it the support that's required? You know, what is it in terms of not just the schools or the delivery, but the support services that are failing those specific students? Now, the good thing about once we've completed that exercise, the next stage will be to engage at school level with the school officers to then drive enhancements, because we're not just going to talk about it and say that it's a statistic that, you know, we can tick the box, we've done it. We then need to say, right, where are the enhancements required? And that will be different from school to school. Okay, some, as Phil said, are performing very well, but there are still pockets that are there for improvement. There are other schools that are not performing as well in certain areas. So we will use the school officer with heads of school and academic strategic leads, okay, to drive change and improvement for those specific areas that need a bit of work done.
Can I just add on to that part that Liz said? I think when we're talking about partnership, I mean, this is my second year in my role, and I do have a favorite experience that I always like to highlight, and that's around our response to COVID and the lockdown. As much as COVID has come with all of its negatives, it's brought as well some form of positives within it as well. And why I'm wanting to highlight this is so one, to sort of close the feedback loop. So for us as a student union to get students to be aware how much that we're doing with the university, but also to put in their call to action. When COVID came and the lockdown came, one of the ways through which we sort of responded or worked in partnership was to gather data and feedback using our feedback structures. So we engaged our reps who engaged their students within their classes. We engaged the school officers and sort of gathered information or data around different courses, different schools, and the different experiences of each individual students. And in doing that, we had an opportunity to work with the university in the decision-making process, and that allowed for us to bring in enough empathy into the decision-making process. So sort of putting the student union and the university in the shoes of students at the time. And that helped us in making those decisions in a very fair and sensible way. You see, you know, most any student can confess that over the summer and up until this present moment, the decisions that are being taken is well with the intention to support students and ensure, you know, the best interest for students. But all of that didn't come to life without proper partnership working and without involving students at all the different levels, you know, course level, school level, and the university-wide level, and not just involving them, but also involving students in the decision-making process. So course leaders involving course reps, school heads of school, involving school officers, the university involving the presidents and the vice president. So it's a good thing. So my call to action to any students watching this is get involved. Get involved in one way or the other. You could get involved being an equality champion, get involved being a course rep, a school officer, whichever way. You're still part of being a part of that circle, that feedback loop, and that feedback chain. So my call to action to everyone is to get involved.
I think that's exactly it. And you read my mind there, Emmanuel, with where we were going to go next. And that's probably the hardest part of our job to explain and to get across is the informal side of partnership that we have. And I know, Phil, we discussed this quite a lot, and with the various meetings that we have and the work we do with yourself and Liz and the rest of the university management team, is there is definitely a place for the committees, for the structures, for the forums, and that's where we can really get the official work done. But it's also about having that kind of informal relationship and discussions, and actually, as you touched on, Emmanuel, being involved in the decisions rather than just having a meeting where it's done to tick a box. You go, you all say your piece, and then you go away and the decision's made. It's about being involved. It's about having the day-to-day discussions. It's about, from our side and from where this can happen for all reps, it's about going out and engaging with students and explaining both sides of it. And I think that's where RGU seems to have done, both from maybe the union and also the university seems to be in a lot better place than probably some others, is because, especially from our side in the union, we've been able to explain almost both sides of it to students. So it's not just been we tried to do this, it didn't happen, but it's well, this is why it can happen and this is what we can do going forward, and it's closing the loop. I don't know if, Phil, if you maybe want to touch on some of your experiences. I know both in freshers, previous to that, as the campus had to close, and then as we've come back into the return to learning this semester.
I think
any takeaways?
I think that we were not desperate, but we realised that we needed to involve student reps, like the student presidents, in our decision making going forward in March, because it was so quick. But I think what you've got to do as a university, and I'm talking on my own here, this doesn't reflect the university's view, but we need to, how can we get a wider student view? And I know and that call to action, get involved in things and let us know, because we're in a situation where the university hasn't been in before, where we've got blended learning, where the vast majority of our teaching is online and we're bringing people in for touch points, or where it's seriously added value. At the moment, and Liz will talk about this going forward, that it'll be similar in semester 2, not confirmed yet, but it's going to be similar. So we need to understand what students are feeling about this. Jordan, in all your activities around sport, this is a completely new situation where you haven't got competitive fixtures, but you're trying to generate a sense of community, and the sports are existing and going forward, and trying to understand how are students feeling about that. So it's really that we've got to keep students at the heart of our decision making going forward, because we could make some really bad decisions without involving students as early as possible in the process, in everything that we do.
I think it's important for students to understand that, while you guys are engaging at strategic level with the university, you need to gather their individual voices together so that they are being well represented, and you're not just representing the views of a few. But the role that Emmanuel played in the leaving campus as we went into lockdown, and then on the teaching and learning group, which was how we were going to cope with online delivery assessments and all the rest of it, and then a move into how we were going to mould semester 1, was the views were invaluable. And actually, we changed some of our decisions on that group based on what the students said. So I think it's incredibly important that people don't think that at RGU create talking shops, because we don't. Okay, everybody is in a position to influence, no matter whether you're stage 1 or whether you're an experienced postgraduate. Everybody is in a position to influence.
And I think that's exactly it. And Emmanuel, your call to action there is we're very conscious from our side that we don't have the same opportunities this year to interact with students. We can't go out and walk around the kind of cafeteria areas and ask students or pop into lectures and all these things in the same way we would. So please, if you have any points or concerns or issues you'd like to raise, get in touch with us. We have, as Jordan's mentioned, the formal structures with the sports and societies forums and our student voice, but we've also got Facebook accounts. So send us a message, let us know, comment on our posts, send us an email, get in touch. And I think that's where, I don't know if you maybe want to touch on, Jordan, because I know that so far this year, where you have had that limited interaction, maybe more than the rest of us have had with students, but that limited interaction with sports clubs, some of the kind of work you've been doing around gathering their feedback, both from a sports perspective and then also the wider university work.
Yeah, of course. So from a sports perspective, I think sports clubs there's a very tight-knit community there, so they do speak very openly within each other, and I think it's pulling that out of them and making sure students are speaking to each other about these issues and then raising them through the channels such as sports forum and societies forum and activities and things like that. But yeah, I think this year, as more than any, we've had elected positions within clubs to kind of gather this information, make sure everything's running safely. So they've kind of been the ears on the ground of making sure that students are okay and they do feel safe. And I think the protocols we have put in place, not only within sport but within the university, students do generally feel safe. I've totally missed your question there, Ross, but I think safety is
okay.
and students are, as you mentioned, they're using these activities as their social outlets and areas to kind of chat and speak. So making sure we're in there and getting that information is key.
I think while we're on this topic, we may as well plug the activities as well, because we've got some amazing sports clubs, great societies, student groups and networks who are all working really hard to have activities this year. Obviously, from the social side, we can't have in-person events. With sports clubs, there is still some training going on, and hopefully as we go forward, there's some competitions and matches. But get involved. It's a great way to meet new people, take advantage of some of the activities that are going on, and really kind of stay active and stay involved as this semester progresses. And I think as well, while we're all here together discussing, it's probably worth touching on the remainder of this semester and then any plans for next semester. I know we've touched on it briefly, but I don't know if Liz and Emmanuel, from your work on the teaching and learning group, if you maybe want to touch on the plans for the rest of the semester, what the plans with exams and assessments, and then also as we get to the end of the semester and have the Christmas break.
Yep. I mean, our plans for assessments are there will be no written assessments or examinations on the campus at all. All written examinations will be online as they were at the end of last year. The examination timetable will be coming out shortly. Some schools have had to change their approaches a little bit, where they had face-to-face examinations. But I say we should have that finalised and out in November, beginning of November. There may be some assessments though on campus where it involves things like practical assessments or some lab-based activity, or indeed from a Grace perspective or Scots-Sutherland's perspective where it involves some sort of studio or space or workshop space. But they will be limited. We'll be applying those where there are professional or regulatory body requirements. But as I say, the majority will be online. The assessment calendar will be in the student handbook. So every student should be able to view their assessment calendar. So if you've got coursework to hand in, it should be staggered, and you should see that in your it's mandatory for every course to have that in the student handbook. So the thing is to start planning now for your assessments, try to manage your time, start to think about using the support on Moodle, how to study, how to learn. Is probably worthy, if you're struggling, is to contact a tutor now before it's too late. So as I say, from an assessment point of view, that is the plan. And then there'll be the Christmas break, obviously, and then the return for semester 2. Now, our approach for semester 2 will be the same as for semester 1. It doesn't look as if things are changing widely at this moment in time. So we're planning for, again, a flexible blend of digital learning with safe on-campus provision. It will be where it's absolutely essential, either for from an educational point of view, or for groups that perhaps are slightly more and require some additional support. So If people are on campus again, it will be ensuring that all the public health measures, social and physical distancing, are in place. It's likely that there will be more practical type activities required in semester 2 because a lot of schools pushed back on campus activity, thinking that we would be back to normal in January. However, that's probably highly unlikely. So we're going to have to make the best use of the space that we have. We won't be inviting masses and masses of people on campus. We'll be sticking to the 25% rule, which means that our numbers will be limited, but the activities will be, as I say, absolutely essential to the learning. I don't know, Emmanuel, if you want to say any more.
I'll probably just be adding. You probably covered everything, Liz. So I'm not sure exactly to add.
So the plans have gone out to schools. They went out about 2-3 weeks ago, and we're expecting them back in the next week, so that we can view the individual school plans and then start getting stuff timetabled thereafter, whether it's online or whether it's on campus. The key thing, I think, for the rest of this semester is for students not to be afraid to seek support. If you're in a class and you don't get it, it's very easy to turn around to the person next to you and say, "Did you get that?" "No, I didn't understand it either." And then, you can thrash it out yourselves. But when you're in a situation where you're learning on your own, if you don't get it, don't be afraid to say, "I don't understand." Either go to the tutor, okay, or go to the nominated, your personal tutor or the course tutor, or in fact study skills or another area, but do not sit there and think, "I don't know and I'm worried about, things are running away with me here. I've got so much to do and I don't know how to plan it." Seek support. Do not sit on your own and worry about it. There's plenty support out there. And if you feel you're not getting enough support, then again, contact us. Because again, there may be an assumption from an individual course team that things are going swimmingly when actually they're not. But you just need to let us know. We wouldn't deliberately want to see people, fail or get anxious because they don't think they think they're on the right track or whatever.
I think that's exactly it. And I know from your side as well, Emmanuel, and the work that we've been all doing as the 3 student presidents is been working with the university to make sure that all the support services are working for students and are still fully operational. And I think that's been the really good thing to see. So as you said, Liz, if students are struggling, get in touch. And if you are struggling and you're not thinking you're getting anywhere, let your class reps know, get in touch with your school officer, let us know as well. And we're always more than happy to help you get in touch with the right people. As I say, we can't always help, but we'll definitely put you in touch with people that can.
And Ross, just to add, if that anxiety around academic work is spreading into your everyday life and you feel you need to talk to someone more about your well-being, for the first time ever, we've got more counsellors than we've ever had before, and they're all online and they're available, and you'll get an appointment. We have had a waiting list in the past, and we have had for about 5 years, but we haven't at this particular time. So if you want to talk to someone, you can talk to them. Just use the Ask RGU, phone the published numbers or whatever. But we can get you an appointment quickly if you just want to talk to a professional.
You've got to remember that we're aware that some of our new first-year students, and in fact some of our postgraduate students, haven't learned since last February. So, that's a long time to be out of, that sort of educational environment. So the anxieties of, I didn't know what to expect. You might have known what to expect had you been learning right up till July or August, but that can be quite, and I know just, hearing some of the word on the ground is, there's a lot of anxiety around expectations, and it's not what I thought it was going to be like. Well, if it's not, that again is where that is an alarm bell. I need to get in touch with someone.
I think that, yeah, it's really good to hear. And I think, Phil, I don't know if you maybe want to touch on, I know that you've been involved in some of the work around student halls and support for students in halls. I know we've been doing some work around that, so if you want to touch on some of the support that is available and maybe what the priority is going to look like going forward.
Yeah, obviously there's been loads of anxiety about COVID and students coming back, and it's been well documented in the press, the national press, and it's been overhyped. We have got COVID cases in our accommodation, but nothing that we're in constant contact with the health protection team in Grampian, and we've got another meeting with them this afternoon. But at the moment, we know that there's no transmission on campus, that as Jordan said, our students and our staff should feel safe because of the measures that we put in. Liz talked about a 25% number. You know, the campus has got massive space. We've got such a big campus, so we know it's safe for the activities, or we think it's safe. We've done everything to make it safe with all our protocols for activity to take place in the small way that it is doing on campus. We've got a lot of people self-isolating either through quarantine or through positive tests and then contacts of those positive tests, and we've got measures in place through our Res Life team, and then we've bolstered that up with accommodation team, and from this week a number of our members of the sports team, full-time staff, are going to be supporting the Res Life team, so that we make sure that we can almost stand down some of the Res Life team that have been on the go for 3 weeks 24/7 without any days off at all, including weekends, that we can start supporting them through email, telephone calls, etc. But we've got support in place around bedding, washing facilities, food deliveries, getting a test if you need it, etc. But we've got all of those in place. There's things that crop up every day that we haven't thought of, but we're able to be flexible enough to say, oh no, we're right, we need to do this at the moment. So we've not been immune to COVID-19, as you can expect. What we found is that our students are behaving 95% of the time, are behaving in line with the law and government regulations and our own regulations. Certainly on campus, we were worried about it at the start. The most difficult thing is when students get together in a group like this, they just drift together shoulder to shoulder, and it's the space thing that they're struggling with, whereas they're wearing their face masks and washing their hands and doing all of that stuff. But it's just the space when students get together, because we're social animals and we want to get close. That's been the most difficult for us. There's been some flat parties, but not over the top. But we have to encourage our students not to mix in households. The big request that we're going to put out this week is that if you download the NHS Test and Protect app, you're probably going to get a quicker knowledge of that you should be self-isolating than if you get a test and wait for the test result to come back and then self-isolate. So that would be a message that I would want to get out to people. Make sure you're downloading the NHS, the Scottish app, and also if you're on campus or you're participating in one of the sports activities, make sure you utilize the RGU app, which even for external sports facilities, you register in. And most importantly, a lot of people, including us as staff, have been forgetting when we leave a building to log out, so that we've got information in case we need to let people know. So there's lots of support for people in our own accommodation. We're trying to support those in private accommodation. That includes international students that are having to quarantine, and all those that are quarantined because either they have tested positive or their flatmates have tested positive. But on the whole, the university is really proud of its student body for the way that it's behaving and coping with the situation that they find themselves in.
I think I'd just add to that, Phil, that if you are contacted by the health protection team and they want to know your contacts, you must be completely honest with them. Now, they're not going to judge you. It's confidential. Nobody will know. The information doesn't get sent back to the university, parents, or anyone else. It's entirely confidential. So always be entirely honest with the contacts that you give them and all of your contacts. It is nobody's business to judge anyone. So remember that. We just have to keep the community relatively safe. So I just stress that. Don't ever worry if you're contacted by the health protection team and asked for your range of contacts over a period of time. Just give them all. And as I say, you know, they're not there to judge you at all. And all the information that you do give them is entirely confidential.
Can I just add to what Liz has said and what Phil has said? As much as Phil said, and I agree, I joined the university in commending the behavior of students, you know, acting in maturity and taking responsibility. I also want to use the opportunity to commend the approach adopted by the university, because I feel that approach to sort of place responsibility in the hands of students, trust students to act accordingly, and in situations where there's maybe an error or not, correct lovingly and correct with the right intentions. I think that approach has really worked well and has allowed the student community to take charge and take responsibility for themselves and look after themselves and look after each other. So big commendation to the university as well for that approach.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. I think we've heard from Liz and Phil about their plans for going forward and what they'd like to do. So I'm going to put us as SABs on the spot here. Jordan, what's your priorities over the next few weeks and as we get to the end of semester one?
I guess as sports president in terms of sport, I'll go for continuing, you know, making sure that sport is still a safe place for students. We have a lot of committees working really hard to make sure that is the case, and we're constantly reviewing guidance, but just ensuring that is still an opportunity for people to socialise, ensuring that we can keep up with the capacities and things like that, and just ensuring that, yeah, we do protect sport and we do protect it as a social entity and somewhere that you can kind of get together with people that you otherwise can't within training. And I guess just keeping on top of student requests. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you now that we've to let us know what's happening. So yeah, continue to support students and make sure safety is paramount as well.
Emmanuel?
I think mine is quite similar to Jordan, just more on the academic side. So my hope and intention would highly rest on the fact that I'd really be keen to see that no students at RGU is disadvantaged in their academic journey and everyone feels well supported during the time. But also ensuring that the safety, welfare, and well-being of students is kept at the center of decision making whenever the university is making any decisions. So I would say would I like my best intentions or my plans going forward.
That's really good, and I suppose I better touch on mine as well. So we've got societies, and we've had some great activities with Black History Month and One RG Many Nations, but making sure that we continue to support our societies and have social events for students in the evening. It is in a virtual environment, but we can still have some great opportunities to interact. And then from the work with the university, it's gathering obviously feedback from students from our forums, as we touched on, and that informal side, and then working quite closely with Phil and the team at Student Life and also in Estates around accommodation and the return to campus as well. Well, thank you very much everyone for joining. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add finally? No? Okay, well, make sure you head over to the RG Union website to find out about the rest of the activities we have both in One RG Many Nations and in Black History Month.
Bye.
Bye.